What's up, guys, and welcome back to another forecast video of the week. So yeah, as you already know, July will be ending tomorrow, and so active trading days will be within the first week of August, right? And I'm here to share my directional bias with you on US30, on gold, on NASDAQ, and on Euro USD. Okay, so quickly, let us jump onto the chart and let me show you what I am looking at for the upcoming trading week. Okay, guys, so real quick, we're gonna start with US30, right? So I'm gonna step into my weekly time frame and see what price is saying. So here on my weekly, this is what I am seeing, right? So I have this nice high in here, right, which made this low. Okay, so I've seen this break of structure, but to me, this is the whole weekly leg, right? So yeah, so real quick, I'm gonna step into my daily and see what the daily is doing. Okay, so like I said, this is my whole weekly leg, and we can see that within that whole weekly leg, I have the daily which has made that break of structure to the downside. Okay, so yeah, we can see this supply zone that I marked from the weekly, and we can see that price is within this supply zones, right? And one thing that I also saw, which I want to show to you guys, is if you look at the supply zone, right above the supply zone, you're gonna see this equal highs right in here, and we also have this levels of imbalances in here. Okay, so in as much as price is within the supply zone, I'll still be looking at what price will be doing. Hopefully we can get into this highs to take out this liquidity and tap into the imbalance, and then what come back down. But all will depend on what the intraday time frames are saying. So currently we have price within the supply zone, and we need to react to whatever price is doing. Okay, so real quick, I'm gonna step into my H4 time frame. Okay, and we can see that this was the last high that made this low, right? So we've had H4 making what higher highs and higher lows. So we've had a break of H4 structure right in here, and so H4 is what is bullish, right? So not without even going to the 1 hour time frame, we can see H1 making what higher highs and higher lows, okay, right into that supply. So H1 is equally bullish, and H4 is also bullish, right? So quickly, let me step into my M15 and let me see what price is doing in here. So we had 15-minute making what higher highs and higher lows, right? And currently this is the last low of the 15-minute that putting this high right in here. Okay, so always, like I say, always react to what the market is doing, not what you think. Okay, so currently I'll just be focusing within this leg, right? I'll be focusing within this leg. If there will be any sales that I will be looking at, I will just wait for this lows what to be taken, right, before I can look for sales into this demand zones of H1 below, right? It doesn't mean that we can push up. We can equally push up, right? We can have price make a retracement into this levels maybe, right, and continue with a push to the upside. Okay, so we can also see that, but then always, like I said, always react. So just wait for any of these sides to be taken. If the market opens, respect the 5 minutes and pushes up, you'll still be looking at what price will be doing, and if there is any trade opportunity, you will just capitalize on that. Okay, so yeah, so that's what I'll be looking at on US30, right? And real quick, let's see what there is on Euro USD. That's my favorite pair, and I'll be trading that. Well, I have a lot of stuff in here, so great. So as usual, I'm going to start from the weekly time frame, right? So in here on Euro USD on the weekly time frame, you can see that we've had this high, right, of the weekly that made this low, right? So we've broken structure, okay? And so normally you have 2 points to look at. The first one will be up in here, right? And the second one will come from this level, which instigated that break of structure, okay? But then I'm going to mark these levels when I get into my daily, okay? So real quick, I step into my daily to see what price is doing, okay? So just refining those levels that I saw on the weekly, I'm going to choose here as my daily supply, right? And I'm also going to mark this one also, right? And I'll mark this one too as my supply on the daily time frame. So currently what I'll be looking at is to, see price, get into these levels, and then we'll see if we'll have any reaction to sell to the downside, okay? Bear in mind that there are some levels of imbalances also in here on the daily, right? So let us just see what the H4 was saying, if there is any intention of price to move to the upside, okay? So from the previous weeks, I was showing that this was the last H4 low that made this high, right? And we can see that that low has been taken. Okay, so it tells you that this will be the last point of H4 supply, right? Where we may have price coming to and then continue with the bears to the downside. But there is something that you also need to see, and I'm going to show you real quick. So in as much as we are looking at this level as our last point of H4 supply, there is something in here that you should also look at. So if I should take my trend line and put it here, you can see that we have we have liquidity built to the upside, right above our last point of H4 supply. We have liquidity built, right? And you always know, or that price is always attracted to liquidity, right? So in as much as I have this H4 break or structure to the downside, I will still be looking at what price will do to these levels of liquidity up there, right? And moreover, we can see that this tapping was from a candle which instigated a break of structure right in here, right? And so I believe that there will be enough bullish pressure to push price to the upside to take out this liquidity, okay? And apart from that, if I come to the H1, you're also going to see something very interesting. So here on H1 we had this last high making this low, okay? So H1 we were bearish, right? And within that H1 bearish push, we had M15 making what? Higher highs and higher lows. Again, there is something within this H1 structure that you should also see, right? So taking my trend line, you're going to see that we have all these levels of what liquidity also built in here. These are relatively equal highs, right? So this is also liquidity built to the upside on the H1. So we have two levels of liquidity built, right? And mind you, this is the last level of what H1 supply, and we can see that price is already coming from that zone, right? However, M15 is bullish. Like I said, we've tapped into certain levels, right? And you're also going to see something on M15, which I'm going to explain, okay? So here on M15, like I said, price is making what? Higher highs and higher lows. We've come into certain levels and we've tapped into certain levels of M15 demand, and probably you'll be looking forward to see price push all the way to the upside to take out these levels of H1 liquidity, which you see over here. But then there is something happening within these levels of M15 structure. We can see that in here, momentum is still bearish, right? Order flow is still to the downside. So in here, we are still making lower highs and lower lows. So personally, I think there could be two things that will happen, right? Either we're going to have price respecting this order flow, right? Come back once more to the downside into this level of demand of the M15 structure before pushing all the way back up to take out the liquidity built to the upside on both on both H1 and H4, right? Or you may not necessarily have that deeper retracement, but then when the market opens, we may have price breaking that order flow, that bearish order flow, right, and continue with the move to the upside. But then all I want to bring to light is currently M15 is bullish. We have internal structure in a bearish mode, right? So we just need to wait for any of these levels to be taken out, right? If this M15 is broken, then maybe we can get a counter trend trade into certain levels before we can buy up, right? If price decides to respect the bearish order flow, yeah, if we have any opportunity on Monday morning, we can take it to the downside. If not, and price still respect this level of supply of the internal order flow, right, we can just wait for price to get into certain levels of M15, then we can buy back up if we have any opportunity. Okay, so that is what I'll be looking at on EU. And quickly, let us look at what we have on gold also. XAU USD, SAU USD. Okay, so that also, I'm gonna step into my weekly time frame and let's see. So here on the weekly time frame, we can see this huge move to the downside, right? Because that was what took out this last low. Okay, so this will be my huge move that I'll be looking at, but then I'm going to, you know, streamline it to, you know, lower time frames. Okay, so stepping into the daily time frame, we can see something interesting in here. Maybe you may not have spotted it depending on how you restructure, but to me, this last low over here got taken out by this wick. Okay, and so I'll see this as a different leg, and then my new leg is going to start from somewhere here to the downside, right? And so real quick, I'm going to mark this level of supply, which I'm looking at on the daily time frame on gold. Okay, and apart from that, I can see this beautiful imbalance in here, and I'm also going to mark that on the daily. Okay, I know there are some people who will be looking at this as this whole imbalance, but I look at it at the wick to wick. Okay, so that will be my imbalance and my beautiful supply zone up there. Okay, so yeah, I'll be looking for price to get into any of these zones, but then let's see what the intraday time frames are saying. So on the H4 time frame, we can see how beautiful H4 broke this level of structure and broke this level of structure too, right? So we have these levels of H4 demand where we can mark and see if price will come in there or will depend on the intraday time frames. So currently we have H4 bullish, right? And what is M15 saying, right? So I didn't step into H1 because, you know, I just know that this is my H1 structural levels, right? So from last week, you know, we talked about the fact that we will have gold selling, right? So we didn't make that deeper retracement, but that is fine. Price just respected, you know, certain levels, and we made a push to the upside. Okay, so here on M15, we can see price making what, higher highs and higher lows, right? So we have higher highs and higher lows, and this is my last low that made this high, and we can see that price respected that level of demand of M15, right? But then we have this level of liquidity to grab. Okay, so we can see or we can expect something like, you know, when market opens, you're gonna have price continuing with a push to the upside, tapping into this imbalance, right? Then we can look for certain, you know, sells to the downside if any is presented, right? If not, we may have price still continuing, right, and, you know, take out the imbalance into that supply zone above. But personally, once I have this M15 push to the upside, all what I'll be waiting for is to see any of these sides taking, right? So either this low or this high. Okay, if this high is taken out into the imbalance, I'll just look for certain trade opportunities to sell to the downside, right? And if price comes to take out this low, then I know that I'll be selling more deeper into certain levels, right? And then if price changes intent, fine. If not, and maybe we have price coming down to take out this low immediately after market open, right? Then I'll also be looking for a retracement, and then I'll look for the ride to the downside. So all what I'll be waiting for is to wait for any of these levels to be taken out before I can take a trading decision. But then currently we can have this imbalance up here to watch for price to come in, and maybe we have a reversal to the downside. Okay, so that is what I'll also be looking on gold. And on NASDAQ, which will be the last pair that we will be looking at. On NASDAQ, real quick, let's look at it from the weekly time frame first, right? So here on NASDAQ, on the weekly time frame, we can see that we've had this high that made this low. So the weekly is bearish after that break of structure, right? And so real quick, we're going to step into my daily time frame to see what the daily is doing on NASDAQ, right? So here on the daily time frame, we can see that we've had this last level of supply, which made this break of structure to the downside taken out, right? So daily, we are bullish, and yeah, and just even without going into H4 time frames, we can see H4 making higher highs and higher lows. So H4 and the daily are aligned, right? But then still, I'll step into my H4 so that we can see things more clearer. Okay, so this is my last low, right? That has put in this high in here. Okay, so we are bullish on H4, and we will see what the H1 also is saying. So here on H1, we can see price also making what? Higher highs and higher lows, right? So H1 is also aligned with what? H4 and the daily, and we can mark this as our last point of H1 demand, right? So real quick, we'll step into M15 and see what price is doing. Okay, so currently we've had this M15 break of structure to the upside, which means M15 is also bullish, right? So we have all of these time frames aligning, but you need to ask yourself where price is at the moment, right? So on the H1 time frame, we can see that price may either retrace into this level of demand before we continue the push to the upside, or once we've had that daily break of structure to the upside, we may expect a little bit more retracement deeper that is taking out this H1 demand. If price gets in there and decides to, right, then we can have more deeper retracement. But then with whatever price is presenting to us, this is our last low that has made this high on M15, right? And so when market opens, we may have a scenario where price may come into certain levels of M15 and may continue the push to the upside, right, to continue the bullish move. If not, and we have M15 breaking this last point of our structure, we may look for a retracement, and then we will capitalize into this H1 demand zones that we see over here, right? If price gets into this H1 demand zones and decides to switch intent for a bullish one, why not? We will capitalize on that. If it decides to hold the bearish move all the way to the downside too, we will be capitalizing on that also. So yeah, so that is what I will also be looking at on NASDAQ, right? So just show these levels down. If any of these levels gets taken out like this, we can capitalize the move to the downside. If price decide to respect this level of demand also, why not? We'll ride along to the upside. Okay, so that is what I'm looking at for the upcoming trading week. Okay, so do well to also analyze and make sure that whatever you're looking at fits your trading plan, it fits your system before you take any live trade. So see you within the week for another educative video.